Adding layers of color and pattern and texture are always a delight in polymer clay, and this project is no exception, using products from the Beachy Keen box. Hi there, Sandy Huntress here with another polymer clay tutorial from Create Along. So my project is starting with a rainbow blend. This is just something I had in my stash that I kept stored away. You can use a solid color, you can use any blend you like, you can just use a whole bunch of different colors. It doesn't matter, just choose colors that you like and speak to you. I am going to silkscreen this flip-flops silkscreen pattern from Create Along. Isn't this the cutest thing? I just love it. It's so summery and happy. I am going to silkscreen this with some white acrylic paint. As always, once you've done the silkscreening, make sure that you thoroughly clean your silkscreen and let the paint completely dry on the polymer clay before proceeding. So here's my pattern, and I wanted to add another layer of color, and I decided to use alcohol ink. I'm going to use some Pinata Rich Gold, but you can use any color you like. And I want this to be a sheer layer, so I'm going to use some alcohol blending solution so that it's not totally solid. I just want a little bit of pattern over all of this. I don't want to cover it completely. If I was working in a slightly larger scale, I'm going to make jewelry pieces, so these will be small. But if I were working in a larger scale, actually the little starfish and the scallop shell from the template that comes in the Beachy Keen Create Along box would be perfect. But for what I was doing, I thought this was a little big. So I have this scallop shell stencil that came in a box quite some time ago. I'm not going to stencil the entire thing, just areas, but I'm going to place that with the stickier side down on my clay. And I have here just a little tool with a felt pad. You can use any kind of applicator you want. And I just want to use the corner of this applicator, because if you put it in the center, it's hard to direct the ink right where you want it. So I am going to put just a drop of my gold alcohol ink right there in the corner. And if you want it to be more opaque, then you don't need to add the alcohol blending solution. But I want a bit more of a sheer effect, so I'm just going to add a couple drops of alcohol blending solution. And use this to stencil just areas. I think I might have added a little too much of the blending solution, so I can just go back and add some more ink. And this just gives a really pretty sheer sparkle. And I'm just doing certain areas. I don't want to cover the entire sheet. I think it looks great when you just do layers upon layers. And repeat that as much as you like. You can certainly do this with more than one stencil, more than one color. I'm going to stop right here though. You can clean your stencil with rubbing alcohol or the alcohol blending solution and let this dry completely before proceeding. Next, you'll want to choose some cutters to cut shapes for your pieces. I have chosen a variety. I have an oval, a square, and a circle here that are in sizes that I think will work for my jewelry. But before we do any cutting of these, we're going to cut our background. By the way, this sheet of clay is about 1 millimeter, maybe 1.5 millimeters thick, a little over 1 millimeter, which is about a middle setting on a pasta machine. However, the first thing we're going to do is cut our background, and then we'll apply these colorful shapes to it. This background is rolled out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine, which is about 2.5 millimeters thick. Now the tricky thing with making background or border shapes for shapes is that you can't always find cutter sizes that will give you the margin you want around your smaller inside shape. So we're going to make our own, and we're going to make them kind of rough and organic. So you just use your cutters to cut out whatever shapes you want. My plan here is to cut several of each, make a bunch, and then when they're all baked and completed, I can go back and choose the ones that I want for my finished design. So you just cut shapes from your background. Like I said, it's important here to make this the thickest setting of the pasta machine. Our background actually won't end up this thick, but we need to start with the clay that thick so that we can spread it out and make it big enough. You'll see what I mean. Once you have your background shapes all cut, now we're going to texture the fronts and the backs. We're going to texture the back using this Abstract Waves texture stamp or sheet by Create Along that came in the Beachy Keen box. And what you want to do is place one of your pieces on the mat and start pressing. Start in the center and then use your fingers and kind of press it out. You can like totally lose the shape you had, or you can use your fingers and kind of keep it. It'll just be the same shape, only a little bit larger and a little bit more organic. Once you're happy with your shape, we're going to texture it using these. Isn't this the most adorable thing? This little surfboard stand for these Life's a Beach stamps that came in the same Create Along box. I think it's absolutely adorable. And these are great just for giving kind of an overall abstract texture around the edges. Remember that only the edges of these pieces, these background pieces, are going to show. And you can do as much or as little texturing as you want. And because we started out with nice thick sheets, when we thin them down, they're still a reasonable thickness to use for our background. So repeat that for as many. I'm going to do 3 of each of my shapes, so I'll have a dozen, and that way when I'm done I'll have plenty to choose from to make my jewelry designs. Alright, so here's my dozen wonderfully organically textured pieces for the background. I am going to add a little mica powder right now. I might do something more later. I don't know, but I just have some pearl mica powder that I thought kind of would tie in nicely with the white acrylic paint. And you can see I'm adding this very casually. Now that the background pieces are cut out, we can start cutting out our main pieces. And you can do this any way you like. I'm just going to start. Try to get as many shapes out of this as I can. And you can see at this scale that cutting shapes like this, you kind of end up with an abstract design rather than it being literally flip-flops. And even this, it all kind of ends up taking these very literal things, flip-flops, fish, scallop shells, and making them just kind of abstract shapes, which I think is sort of fun. So if you have a seam on your cutter, you'll want to smooth that out. And a little liquid clay on the back of your piece won't go amiss because, of course, the background pieces are so textured. And then just pop one of these on each one of those. Well, there, aren't these fun? Now you can bake them any way you like. It depends on what you're planning to do with them. If you are going to make them into a bracelet, you might want to give them a bit of a curve so that they fit more comfortably on the wrist. If you're going to make earrings, you might want to keep them flat. For a necklace, you could do either. I'm actually going to give them all a little bit of a, just kind of a twist, just because I want to. I just don't want them to be flat. So I'm going to give them a little bit of a twist and bake them on paper or cardboard so that they won't get shiny on the back. You can add mica powders to the back if you want, or just plan to antique it or color it another way after baking. So bake these at your manufacturer's recommended time and temperature. So this is kind of the fun part. After baking, you can start to arrange these in whatever way you like to make jewelry or anything you want. I think it's just kind of a fun, creative sort of puzzle. I'm going to make mine into a necklace, and I've already started, and I put some beads in between them just to kind of add a little sparkle and tie them all together. You'll find these ones, you can just look up this name, Topaz Rainbow Iris, at Dollar Bead Box if you like these particular 6mm check glass corrugated rondelles. But they're really simple to make, just simple loop connectors. Start with an eye pin, slide on a bead. If you don't know how to make simple loops, you can go to my YouTube channel, Sandy Huntress Keepsake Crafts, and look up simple loops. I've done a video showing how to do it. I do love using my one-step looper though. It just kind of saves a little bit of time and work. Make sure your loops are closed completely, and also make sure they are both in the same, going in the same direction. So, not twisted like that, but make sure they're both on the same plane. And you make enough of those to go in between all of your pieces. And then you'll need to drill holes. So let's see, I need to decide. There we go. That'll be the rest of my necklace. So just a little 1/16 inch drill bit. And which way are we going to put those? That way? Yeah, I think I like it on the diagonal. Don't drill too close to the edge of your pieces. If you find that the jump rings you have aren't quite big enough, I'm using 6mm. If you drill further out and the 6mm aren't big enough, you can always just sub in 8 or 9mm jump rings. And polymer clay drills very easily. You don't need anything but your fingers and a drill bit. Open a jump ring, attach it to one of your connectors, and then attach it to one of the little bead links. Make sure that your pieces, your polymer clay pieces, are both facing in the same direction. And close your jump rings nice and securely, twisting them side to side till those ends, you can hear it kind of click till they snap together. And if you want, you can also turn that jump ring so the split is inside the polymer clay pieces. So this is why I saved the drilling and making the holes until after I was done, because I wasn't sure which pieces I was going to use for what. So in this case, this piece has 3 holes to make it the pendant. And for this one, I just used a head pin instead of an eye pin to make a little bead dangle at the bottom. And you just continue connecting your pieces. Add a bit of chain and a clasp around the back. And you have a great piece of jewelry. You could use these to make lots of fun earrings, bracelets, wind chimes, whatever you like. So once again, this is Sandy Huntress for Create Along, wishing you happy creating.